this evening. I really appreciate it. And with just the 55 days left?
54.
54 days left. Then it's, I think, extremely important that we look at, I mean, every vote is going to count. And so I think it's really timely that Mark's invitation would come at a time when in my own community, the Latino community, we are doing as much as we can to turn out the vote. I'm going to tell y'all also that Mark noticed my button earlier. Can y'all see what it says? It says Viva Ann for Governor. Yesterday, with the passing of Governor Ann Richards, you know, I started to think about, in preparation for this presentation, I started to think about, my husband and I were talking this morning about all our favorite Ann Richards stories, because she was a friend of ours, and also, you know, a colleague of ours in turning out the Latino vote. And I had a choice of buttons to wear tonight, but I chose this one because it does have a little Spanish significance too. But you know, in Texas, we sort of learned the hard way that we can't alienate a big part of our voter base. That if we had brought folks in a lot earlier, African Americans and Latinos, we would have actually made a lot more progress than we had. And in North Carolina, we have a real opportunity to be able to do that. It's been, Governor Hunt actually was the person that signed in our first Spanish language voter registration form. And there was a lot of, not a lot, but there was much opposition to him doing that, saying that, you know, this is well, if people can't read the voter registration form in English, and, you know, maybe they shouldn't be on the voter roll. But, and you all know how visionary he is. And I think what he really saw was that this was going to be something that he could do for the community, that then we could say, look, here's an outreach tool that's being used for us. Well, since that, and that actually what changed about that voter registration form is that it had a place on it for us to mark our ethnicity. So we could check the box that said Hispanic or Latino. And for those of us that, for people like myself that have been involved in politics for a long time, you know, when we start looking at our voter rolls of who we're going to be contacting to do GOTV, you know, if we are looking at tapping into the women's vote, we're looking at how many people are on the roll that are women. If we're going to be trying to turn out our African American vote, we're looking at that. We're looking at who's under 25, we're going to be looking at that. And so this was a way for us to get out of the other category and so that we could find out who we were and how we were listed. And this was really helpful in Patsy Keever's campaign, because what we could do is we used a dictionary to draw out all of the Spanish language surnames, like mine, Campos, like Martinez, like Gonzalez. So then we could call on those folks, and I don't think it would surprise any of you as the stalwarts of the party to say, you know, when we were calling people, and even if they didn't know us or they didn't know Patsy, to draw that that relationship there with somebody else that was Latino, then they were willing to say, you know, I may not know Patsy Keever, but if you tell me that she's a good person and that she's the person for this position, then I'm going to vote for her. Well, I just want to share with y'all a little quote that I found from the National Council of La Raza. And it's interesting that the woman who is now the president of the NCLR used to be the deputy director for the Gore Lieberman campaign. She was second in command with Donna Brazil, or Donna was at the top, and then Janet Murguia. And so she knows the value of the Latino vote. And one of the things that she was talking about in a press release was that she was saying, you know, immigration reform is fair game this election cycle. However, what's not fair game is the demonization of a whole community. And lots of times, as I've traveled around the state and in my work, I do have people want to pigeonhole me to say, well, you're all undocumented, you're all here illegally, you're all uneducated, you're all not registered, not voting. And so I think it's important that we realize that while that is, yes, part of our community, and we acknowledge that, I will say that my travels, the Latinas that I've talked to have told me that, you know, our issues are the same as other working folks' issues. We want, you know, we would like for people to be here legally. We want a safe and secure border. We want a safe and secure country. We want people to be here legally. But the bottom line is that our immigration laws have not kept up with our need for labor. And so I don't know how many of you get the Citizen Times, but if you saw an article that was published a week ago, the front page, above the fold, a week and a half ago, was an article about an apple grower in Henderson County who had said that his apples were on the ground rotting, and he was in fear of losing his family farm that he's had for generations because he could no longer find the labor that he needed to pick the apples. And he said, I used to be able to get legal help to come out and help me pick my apples, but now people are so scared, and there's so much information out there that's wrong, and there's so many people who think, well, even though I may be here holding a green card or here on an agricultural visa, I don't want to do the kind of jobs that are kind of stereotyped to folks like me, because I'm afraid the Immigration Service is going to come through, or we're all going to get picked up. And some of you know that there are some spaces in our history of our country where you sort of get arrested for your documentation, not your documentation, but like your legal, what's legal about you, and right afterwards. So instead of the innocent until proven guilty, you're guilty until you're proven innocent. And so there's a lot of misinformation out there, but I think what's going on also in the Latino community that's legal and U.S. citizens, more of us are registering to vote. And Mark was kind enough to pull up the latest data for us about here locally in District 10. And I want to just share it with you because I think that it's interesting to see about what the changes that are coming for us. So Hispanic registrants. For the 2004 election, there were 816 voters registered as Hispanic in the 10th district.
How many?
816. 63% cast a vote in 2004 general election. That's about, I think, what the average was in 04. Since the 2004 election, there has been a 43% increase in the number of Hispanic voters in the district. There are now over 1,168 registered as Hispanic, of which 449 are registered as Democrats. 363 are registered as Republicans.
How many is Democrat?
300, I'm sorry,
Democrat.
449. I lost my place, and this type is very small.
Sorry, Edna.
It's okay.
363.
363 are registered as Republicans, and 358 are registered unaffiliated. That's a pretty big pool for us to go after, 358. Now, other registrants, remember I told you a lot of people were still in the other category because they did not use the newest form. For the 2004 election, there were 3,335 voters registered as other in the 10th district.
Well, that includes Asian voters as well.
Anyone that's in that other category. So that isn't all Latino voters, but I think what the numbers show is that clearly people are interested and showing interest in registering and in voter participation. And so I think it behooves us as the core of the Democratic Party, that are those of us in this room, to really think about how we can do outreach. Now, I will tell you that what the National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials, NALEO, says is that Hispanic voters in talking about Hispanic voters in swing states. In swing states, House races could hinge on districts where Latinos make up a large number. So that would be in places like in Texas and California and New Mexico. However, where the Latino population is still relatively small, like here in District 10 or District 11, their voting force could make a big political impact.